He was during a snowstorm. It's another event which irked him tremendously because he was forced to pay me double time and a half for a day I didn't work. What had happened was that there was a snowstorm in New York, and we had been ordered to work, or scheduled to work the following day, which was a Sunday. It was busy, and we were working all week. But we had a blizzard that night, and there was 3 to 4 feet of snow on the ground. Well, I didn't get a call from him to cancel the day or tell me to stay home or we're not working today. So what I did is I got up 4 o'clock in the morning to make it up to the Bronx in 4 foot of snow. It took me time, a lot of time, but I got there. And of course the place was closed, nobody was there, and obviously by the amount of snow I figured they weren't coming in. So I left a note on the door for him. I said, I was here, you wasn't, you owe me. And as a result of that, he had to pay me a substantial sum of money, because it was a Sunday, double time and a half. But he argued with me about it, and I said to him, he said to me, why are you doing this to me? I says, because to teach you a lesson. I says, all it would have cost you was a dime to call me up and tell me not to come in. You didn't have that kind of respect for me, which I demand. So now pay me. And I got paid. So to make the long story short, he was screwing me out of wages, substantial amount too. And I knew it. So the 31st day I went up to him and I said, hey, what the hell was his name now? I can't even think of Dan Florio. And I said to him, you're not paying me under the contract, what I'm supposed to be entitled to under the contract. And he said to me, if you don't want it, you're not worth it. If you don't want it, leave. What he didn't know is I had a tape recorder in my pocket. And here I am asking for a benefit which I'm entitled to, and him telling me essentially, he's not going to give it to me. In any case, that was the start of a very bad relationship between me and him. And several incidents after that, what he was doing was he was making us put number 2 heating oil in the diesel tank. And what happens is diesel fuel has an oxidizing agent which helps it burn more rapidly and efficiently and produces less fumes. Less fumes means less fumes in the cab and less fumes coming out the muffler, destroying the environment. So that was one of his little illegal activities, if you will, because attached to diesel fuel is taxes. So he was screwing the state and the city out of their fair share of taxes. Secondly, he was polluting the environment, and he's making me choke to death in the cab. In any case, what I did was, I knew on my path there was an environmental protection officer sitting in a car on the side of the road. It was on the expressway. And as soon as I seen it, I put my foot on the gas, I floored it, and there was all kinds of smoke coming out of the muffler. And sure enough, the cop pulled me over. And what I did was I told him about what he was doing with the replacing the diesel fuel with number 2 heating oil, and that he does it regularly. Well, he gave me a summons anyway. And as a result of that complaint and that summons, we started fueling up the next day with diesel fuel at a local gas station instead of number 2 heating oil. And I think he was fined for EPA violations. In any event, it was a very hostile relationship because what I was doing essentially was just wanting what I was entitled to. The wage scale, which was contractually agreed to by the union, and I didn't want to choke to death in the cab. I don't think those two things were too unreasonable. But anyway, in any event, that spawned the relationship that was unhealthy. And, you know, what made my day one day is that I came in the morning and he said to me, "Paul, you know, you make me sick to my stomach." And I said to him, "I'm sorry to hear that, Dan," you know. And so on and on and on and on from there. But if you're entitled to a right, if you have rights and you don't use them, what good are they? I mean, and he's not the only one that violates the contract. They overload dump trucks. They do all sorts of things that actually harm the public and at least not in the best interest of the public. But it's a policy of catch me if you can, you know. And it's up to the employees or workers to point these things out and insist on their rights if they're going to get any sort of relief or whatnot. I made the job better. Not only did I make it better for me, but I made it better for my fellow workers. They too were forced to fuel the trucks with diesel fuel rather than number 2. But that was a thing that made my day. I was glad that what I did was sufficient to aggravate the shit out of him. And in any case, that was probably one of the better days of my life. But I was working for this company here, dump trucks. I don't know. And what happened was, they had a habit of overloading trucks. And if you get pulled over, they'd had scales set up in the city in Brooklyn and whatnot, and if you get caught for being overloaded, you got a ticket, of course. So I got a ticket, and I went to court to answer it. So one of the company's lawyers come over to me, and he says to me, "Paul, I'll take that ticket, I'll handle him," because he had many other tickets for drivers who got caught and got ticketed. So I said, "No, I'll handle it." You know? So they called my name to go up before the judge. And what I said to the judge, "Your Honor, we're directed as a matter of routine to try to end run the scales."
Oh my God.
More often than not, we're overloaded with the trucks, and we have no control over that as drivers. So there was a DA or whoever that guy was in the court that probably was supposed to be prosecuting me. You know, after the judge heard my story, he says to the prosecutor, he says, "Are you hearing this?" You know, and the prosecutor said yes. And he says, "I'll tell you what, Mr. Poulos, I'm going to fine you X amount of dollars, if your boss doesn't pay the ticket, you come back and let me know. So I said, fine. I paid the fine, and I did get reimbursed by the boss, incidentally. But the interesting part was, after I told that story to the judge, this fucking attorney has to come up after lunch with all these other tickets, you know, and try to get them reduced or whatnot, eliminated or whatnot by some legal mumbo jumbo. But then he can, after what I told him, the fucking judge was going to look at him with a jaundiced eye. And,
that's a ton of money.
These are little, what would you call them? Victories? Victories,
Absolutely.
I guess.
Absolutely.
You can call it a victory.
Definitely.
Of course, I never worked there again. But, so there was a cost to me in terms of losing the job. But,
Was it hard to get work back then as a trucker?
yeah, because they were blacklisting me. I moved from dump trucks to cement trucks. And I got a job with Local 282. But they didn't know who I was at that time, Local 282. And that local was run by Bobby Sasso, another organized crime figure, who incidentally went to jail, but I ain't gonna get into the details of that. In any case, 30 days, if you work 30 days steady on a truck, you were put on the list automatically. And what happened was I got my 30 days in, I think it was 31, and I went from Local 814, I went to Local 814 to get my book, my union book transferred from 814 to Local 282. Well, as soon as 814 called my name, or knew my name, they got in touch with Bobby Sasso. Bobby Sasso got in touch with my employer, and they fired me the next day. And so this was like, it was a struggle to, to gain work, and I needed to work, and this is the thing that exists on most jobs today, and most people who raise their voice against, I don't care what the issue is, whether it be safety on the road, whether it be forced overtime, whether it be whatever the issue is, if you raise your voice against it, in opposition to it, they'll fuck with you, because that's where the power is. And if we're going to change that, people got to understand that there has to be more voices than one. And but the thing of it is, in large part, we're responsible for our own predicaments, maybe unconsciously, but we're a consumer society. Before a man or woman could raise their voices on the job, they see their car payment due, their mortgage payment due, their insurance due, their oil due, and they know if they raise their voices, all that goes down the tubes. My advice to people generally is to keep what I call fuck you money. Set aside enough money that'll carry you over these periods. And by what I mean by fuck you is if the boss gives you more shit that you can eat, you can tell him to go fuck himself, because you have that little cushion. Here I am standing across the street in front of the pole. They got me hanging an effigy from a dummy up there with a hammer and sickle on his chest.
Amazing.
And I'm saying to myself, what the fuck am I doing here? You know, all these fucking guys jeering, and he was juicing them up with fucking liquor and shit. What the fuck am I doing here? I wasn't afraid of losing. I was afraid of winning. You know, it was just
Amazing,
but
man.
It was
Why were you afraid of winning? What would go down?
well. What would go down if I won? That's interesting. I would have probably been fighting the mob as a singular individual. But there was Frankie Cannon, Eddie Abrams.
I hadn't seen him. I saw him like last summer
Yeah.
out at Socrates.
Yeah.
These guys were part of that movement in there, and they were stand-up guys. Actually, they were down the Pouls with me. But Brocco had such an influence over the work that you couldn't really challenge him, because when you're in office that long and you're corrupt, you can. He actually operated a separate Brooklyn referral system, where he got all his people, and he'd actually charge them for going to work. But it was a sewer, and
Yeah.
it was a sewer, so I'd be president of a sewer.
Sounds like a gig to me.
Yeah,